Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Resilience Project podcast. Before we dive in to today's episode, I want to share a little bit of context with you. As we step into this new year, I'll be honest, I didn't have capacity this week to record something new. There's been a lot moving inside of me, a lot integrating, and rather than push myself to produce something, I chose to honor where I actually am. And in that space, my dear friend Becky actually offered something incredibly generous. What you're about to hear is a conversation that Becky and I recorded about a year ago, right around the same time. It was toward the end of 2024, heading into 2025. We were standing at the edge of the new year, reflecting on identity and healing and what it really means to come home to yourself. So listening back to it now with everything I've lived and learned since then, I realized how timeless and grounding this conversation still is. There's something powerful about letting an older version of ourselves speak into a new season, especially when that message is still true. This episode is a reminder that healing doesn't move in straight lines, that identity unfolds gently over time, and that sometimes the most aligned thing we can do is slow down, listen, and let what's already been spoken continue to do its work. So I hope this conversation meets you exactly where you are as we enter 2026. The one thing I will say is it's only audio. There was no video available of this recording. Talks about the video in the recording, so just understand that you're just going to be getting audio. And I'm so happy to be able to share this with you, and I hope that the first week of your new year has been rewarding and supportive, and I hope you find that as well for your week this week. Talk soon. See you next Thursday.
Welcome, friends, to an episode that right before I hit record, Julie and I said a little prayer, and I was like, God, I was so excited to start my week recording with Julie. This is my first appointment on a Monday morning. It's 11 a.m. And anytime I get to be in Julie's presence, it just feels like home. It's not draining. And Julie, you're just one of those people, because when I feel the most drained, it's when I'm in spaces or around people where I feel like I have to mask or I can't be totally honest. And I don't feel that with you. So even if I am exhausted, even if you are sick right now, it's mutual that we give each other energy.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you said what you said right at the beginning when you said, I feel like it's coming home. I think that's what you said when we're together. I just did an exercise this morning about that, about how I want others to feel in my presence. I sat still. Yeah. And it made me really emotional. But one of the things that I wrote down, literally, I'm going to look because it was what you just said is what I want. Yeah. I mean, I guess I did, but it was, and that's part of the beauty of what we're going to be talking about today. But I said, like they've come home. That is literally the phrase that I wrote.
That's how you want people to feel in your presence.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Well done. That's how I feel in your presence, Julie.
Well, that's so encouraging to me. So yay.
Well, Julie's going to teach you all the tricks of how to manifest just like that in this episode. But for those who don't know, we have a long history. Julie and I have known each other back, almost a decade now. And we've seen each other in the ugliest and lowest of valleys. And we've also been able to celebrate each other on all the mountaintops and be able to just do boring, mundane stuff in between and feel comfortable in each other's presence. Julie and I get to work together. She is our lead client support coach in the Root to Rise program. And every single woman who has an opportunity to learn from and be coached by Julie is a better human. And our clients are obsessed with her. And so this is her third time back on the podcast, but it's been about a year. Fourth time. Okay. But it's been a while. And so, Julie, anything you want to add before we get into what we're going to talk about today?
No, but find yourself a friendship like this. We were just talking at the beginning about how there's something really powerful, and this doesn't happen often. I don't feel like a relationship like ours that can stand shifting as much as this has. And that's a really big statement to say. Find something like, I just am very proud of what we've been able to create in our relationship and very grateful. for you. So.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, you could say, shifting identities. We have evolved a lot. And not that we've become a new person. I think we've just peeled off the layers that really weren't us to begin with. And so in talking about identity, we'll get into that. But yeah, it's like we've gone from Gorilla Glue to super glue, especially after a couple months ago when we had our first official rupture that we've repaired and are so proud of now.
We're so
damn proud. All right. So identity, can we first, even a big umbrella term, get on the same page about what do we mean when we're talking about identity? It is a really big topic right now in our world, in our society, people fighting for rights to be able to step into and embody and live out an identity that they feel is aligned with them. This is a controversial conversation in political spaces. This isn't the route we're going today. So I want to on the same page and just define, what are we talking about when we say the word identity?
Well, I mean, I think it goes very well in line with what you talked about last week. So for me, and that's the other thing that I sat with this morning was, who am I? How would I define that? How would I define that today? And I do believe that is the definition of our identity, is who we are. What is our purpose? What is our passion? What were we put on this earth to do? Yes, you're welcome. I just used 3 Ps. We know that Becky loves alliteration. So I try to bring that in as much as possible. I as well love it. But I think that is really been the journey that I've been on over the last 2.5, 3 years with you, has been this journey of self-discovery of who am I? What does that even mean to me? And I think each person defines that differently. Identity is what we stand for. So it's just really interesting how this is so aligned with what I did this morning. Center myself, and heading into a new year, I don't want to do it in January. I want to be prepared heading into the new year, knowing what do I feel led to, and allowing myself the space for that.
It's honestly been really powerful and inspiring to witness you over the last 2 years. And me and Sebastian have talked about this behind your back, the good gossip, where both of us are like, she just has stepped into her own at a level that allows us to feel so at home in her presence, because Julie just knows who she is. She knows it like she knows it like she knows it. And you don't morph or chameleon depending on who you're around. You have your convictions, you have your personality, you have your unapologetic, this is me. That's the vibe you put off into the world. So I want you to know that. But I'm curious, if we were to turn the clock back 2.5 years, if I were to ask you, who are you? What do you think Julie back then would have said? How would she have described herself?
I think I would have burst into tears. I think I would have felt unbelievably embarrassed and humiliated with where I was. I don't think I would have known what my purpose on this planet was, because I was so unbelievably polluted by trauma responses that I didn't even know I was cycling through, to be honest. And I think I was very comfortable in that place. That's not a good thing. I was just comfortable cycling through them because that's all my body knew. And I will go here. It is not my identity, but it is a part of it. Being an adoptee, there is a real true fact that we enter, depending upon when we were adopted in the time of the world. Like, I was adopted in 1973. And at that time, you didn't get to be with the birth mother. You were taken away. And so for me, I think there was this real sense of, I don't know who I am, and I don't know how to find who I am. And that was beginning to be uncovered at that point, because the I guess you could say the wool had come off my eyes, or the veil had been removed. And I didn't like what I was seeing about who I was. I think there was so much uncertainty in my life back then, and unknown. There still is, amazingly, and we can talk about that. But I think talking to you, I remember that conversation that we had. I felt so small and collapsed and ashamed and embarrassed. It makes me emotional thinking about it. Yeah, I don't think I could have told you who I was.
It's really relatable. I know I felt the same way, especially when I began that journey of somatic healing, when my marriage was, okay, I don't think we're going to make it. We've tried everything and nothing else I can imagine would help more than what I've already tried, and insert somatic work. But it was humiliating, and I felt like an imposter. So many people looked at me as a leader had the career together and the marriage and the house and the kids. Internally, I felt super uncomfortable in my own skin. I felt like I am not proud of the woman that I'm showing up as, if I'm being honest with myself, when I put my head on the pillow, when I'm just alone with my thoughts going to sleep. It was easy to present shiny on social media. But when I was really honest with myself in those quiet moments, is what am I doing? I'm not present with myself. I'm not present for my kids. I'm anxious as hell. I'm struggling in my marriage. I feel unaligned in my career, all of the things. And it's interesting because both you and I get the honor of witnessing women just like us who start with that, oh my God, if you ask me who I am, I'll burst into tears because I don't remember who I am anymore. I've lost myself either in motherhood and trauma and marriage. I have self-abandoned for so long and gotten so far from myself. And we get to watch them go from that stage to first establishing safety in their nervous system again, dissolving shame, being able to lean into embodying radical self-acceptance and compassion so that they can, with that lens, go through the journey of stepping back into their power, understanding who they are, navigating triggers with confidence, learning to hear and trust their own intuition. And what we have seen is so many of our clients get to the end of the road and they're like, whoa, all right, I'm no longer in survival mode. I have learned how to go through this sticky, dark metamorphosis, and I've turned into this beautiful butterfly. But there's still a bit of a question now of like you said, veil lifted or wool off the eyes. Who am I really? Outside of this relationship, whether they've chosen to stay in the relationship or not, it's who am I apart from as a me and apart from my trauma and no longer identifying with all of these labels and self-name calling like codependent and anxious and all of these things that were so much more than. Who am I really? And what do I do now? It's a little bit of a, whoa, there's limitless possibility for my life now. I have energy and capacity to think about things beyond my relationship being on fire, but that can also be overwhelming. Like, hey, where do I go now? So curious. I know you've noticed the same thing, but anything you would add to what we've witnessed?
Yeah, I would. I think going with what you just said, I think it's really interesting because the metamorphosis that happens as we begin to get out of our heads and into our body, which that's literally what we do in this program, it's not something that happens overnight. And what you'll find, and even one of our clients recently, and I think you might have posted it on your socials, talked about how she couldn't even define how the shift happened, that it was over time, these little things, and we've talked about this a lot. Those little imperceptible shifts that we make consistently have this breakthrough impact on our life when we look back. If I could have told you in the midst of it that me putting my hand over my heart was going to make a difference, I would have back then gone, this is ridiculous. I felt that when I did it the first few times. But I think it's not just the act of showing yourself compassion. It's really believing that you deserve it. That was something that I did not believe for a very long time. I felt like the circumstances of my birth proved that I didn't believe it. My birth mother attempted to abort me twice. I'm not supposed to be here. But then at the same time, the exact opposite is true. Clearly I am, or I wouldn't have survived that. So there's this ability to, once we're able to actually free up, and you mentioned energy, and a lot of people freak out when we talk about energy. But I'm telling you, and Becky, I am a deeply spiritually rooted woman who loves God with everything that I have. Energy is real. That's fact. You can't unscience that. That's the truth. It exists. And so we cannot, there isn't just all this energy available. It's as Joe Dispenza talks about it, we have to free up energy to be able to get it to call back to us. And that's a whole other thing that we can talk about another time. But all of that to say, as I moved through this process with you as my gentle guide, which is what I would say, I needed gentleness. I am not naturally gentle. It's something that I have wanted to be for a lot of my life. And I think I'm becoming that way more. But I think as I had this person in my life who didn't judge, who helped me to learn curiosity, which is now one of my core values, wasn't originally, it is now. I think there is something extremely powerful about that whole idea of coming home to yourself. And whether you end up calling new relationships in, or calling an old relationship up. Either way, you shifting what's happening within you makes all the difference without you, meaning on the outside. And I think that's the big thing that I want to highlight is there is nothing wrong with paying attention to healing ourselves. So many people for years have been like, that's selfish. You're focusing on you, especially in the Christian world. And I'm not trying to call it out. I do. But there's been a history of having to do it a certain way, having to do things in a legalistic kind of way. And I think what I have learned is each person has to find their path. And me coming alongside them is just me helping them come back to themselves. That's the reason why I named my company what I did. It's coming home to self. And you talk about this all the time, that the thing that we are all searching for is, how do you talk? Belonging. And what do you say? Love and belonging. A severed sense of love and belonging is what we were born with, but that's what we're seeking. It's within us, and it's us learning how to empower others to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you did for me. So when I got to that place, I was able to be free. Like the cycling through the trauma wasn't happening anymore. Those triggers ended up becoming triumphs for me. They were victories because I could look at them and go, you're not in charge anymore. You're just an indicator of something that I still need to learn from. Okay. And I had the capacity to do that versus being taken down by it, because I was able to move it out over time doing those little incremental things.
Yeah, I love that you just said triggers became my triumphs. And something that you say a lot to our clients is triggers are your teachers. Again, alliteration. But so many women come in, how do I make my triggers go away or tone them down? And it's kind of the opposite response we have in coaching them is like, ooh, actually get really curious and see them as you can rub your hands together type energy. Like, okay, this is about to teach me something about myself. It's going to invite me to come home to myself a little deeper. So I love your story because you're the poster child for somebody who did start out, I don't know who I am, to getting so unbelievably comfortable and clear with your identity. And part of that was learning how to flex your own intuition. We'll get into that. But for the woman who is listening and really just wants the practicals is what you're so good at giving our clients. And I'm a big believer in not gatekeeping all of these tools. Yes, we have a program you can invest in to get us in your pocket, and we would love to walk with you hand on hand. That's a level that we'd be happy to invest in you in. But I really believe that for those who the program isn't available for, that's why I have this podcast, for free access to what I believe is going to change the world, is rising knowledge and a way of life that's much softer, much more aligned, much more conscious. And so for the woman who's, okay, Julie, tell me practically what to do. If you could name top 3 things maybe that helped you get super clear on who you are, what would you share?
Yeah, I think the first step for me was understanding shame, really understanding, developing a relationship with it. Most people run from it. And I think I needed to name that part of myself. It was a huge shift for me once I was able to do that and actually interact with her. I know it. Anytime I talk about this, I feel like I'm bipolar or something. No, that's not what it's about. Everybody has heard, well, not everybody, but parts work, IFS therapy, it's out there. It's talked about. Family systems. We have an internal family system. And once I was able to free up the energy, I was able to now encounter her instead of be ruled by her. She felt as if she had to protect me for years. Understandably, because I had nothing to offer. I didn't know how to not allow her that power. So I think it was being able to actually encounter her, and it was a gentle process. She was far away, and I had to acknowledge that I hated her, literally. And what I realized about that, and I remember my therapist really working me through it, was you don't hate her, she's you. But I did. And it took her saying that out loud for me to go, oh, she's me. Okay. So I need to develop a relationship with her. And what that even looked like was just allowing her to step closer and me being able to feel in my body what that felt like. Because shame for me, like I talked about, was that collapsed small feeling. And for me, I would immediately start crying. I needed to know, how do I physically respond to this feeling of shame? I was so used to it, but I hadn't ever been curious about how I responded to it. So as soon as I was able to actually interact with that, and no, I get small, I cry, I isolate, I don't want to have anything to do with anybody. I back myself into a corner, I shut down, which is so not me. I'm a loud, very interacting kind of person. But when shame was active, don't even have a conversation with me. Nobody would know what was going on with me. And so I think that was the first step, was interacting with it. The second step was bringing it out of isolation, was actually talking about it. And I remember one of the first times I did this with you, it had to do with an interaction that I had had with someone. And it was such a little thing, but I, for the first time, had felt all of those things happen in my body. And I picked up the phone and I said, I know I need to bring this out of isolation because that's what Brene Brown tells me I need to do. So here I am doing and being obedient, which I'm really good at too. But I'd never experienced that feeling of acceptance wash over me from another human when I'm in this place, because I really very rarely had allowed that. And so once I received that from you, I was able to offer it to myself. That was the beginning for me, was to be able to realize I'm acceptable to someone else, even though, but I didn't need that to be okay. I think that was a big thing. Okay, she's validating what I'm feeling. So I can actually be compassionate with myself in this moment and go, you're right. No, you are okay to feel this way. Now let's move beyond that. Okay, so what's the next step? It's really that radical self-compassion. It's being able to show it to yourself. And it could be little things. It could be the hand over heart. It could be just telling yourself, I'm okay. For you, it was the breath work. It was the box breathing. I think it's finding, that's why we don't here, do this. We don't tell our clients that. We help empower them figure out what is theirs. And once they're able to own that and it's their go-to, they begin to see the difference in their life. And that's what happened to me. I started with the hand over heart, and then I began to add other tools that resonated with me. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, simple 3-step process. So practically what you did, if you could boil it down to the most helpful things that helped you find yourself. One, it was getting comfortable and familiar with shame and how it felt in your body, just the conscious awareness of it, of, oh, I'm collapsing and I'm shrinking. Instead of trying to run from that anymore, really presencing it. And then second, you spoke to bringing it out into the open, actually practicing with another human that's safe, bringing it out of your head and your body and into reality. And that reminds me of the quote that I know what you were referring to, but I want to share it here. It's from Brene Brown. If you put shame in a petri dish and cover it with judgment, silence, and secrecy, you've created the perfect environment for shame to grow until it makes its way into every corner and crevice of your life. If, on the other hand, you put shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, shame loses its power and begins to wither. Empathy creates a hostile environment for shame, an environment it can't survive in, because shame needs you to believe you're alone and it's just you. So that other person, that co-regulation was huge. And then the third part was learning how to offer it to yourself, the self-compassion, the self-hug, box breathing, whatever helps people practice. Hey, saying to themselves, for me, it'd be like, Becky, I'm with you. This is hard. This is uncomfortable. I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not abandoning you, and talking to yourself. And what you're doing is, for anyone who's seen Inside Out, Riley, who has all parts of her in her brain trying to manage the operating system. Once they learn how to work together, that's what parts work is. It's an IFS therapist that created Inside Out. Once they learn how to become friends and integrate, that's when healing happens. Trauma is originally what fractures us into these different parts that end up fighting against each other. There's an internal tension. And so you speaking to the gentleness, the softness, the self-compassion, the integration, this is all part of parts work. So I love it. Yeah. Love it.
Brene has become like my best friend. If she was an animal, she'd be my spirit animal. But that is the big thing that really helped me. And a lot of people, I hear from a lot of adoptees that I work with, but I hate myself. And I get that. I've been there, totally understand that. But we've got to begin to, and this is the word I use all the time, titrate up. So a person who is feeling that feeling of, I don't like myself, you have to start small with these things. You can't be like, oh yeah, just show yourself compassion. It's being able to have somebody in our life reflect, what does that even look like? Which is what you did for me. And so once I was able to hear, this is what compassion looks like, then I was and feel validated in that, then I could go, oh, well, what I'm experiencing sucks. I didn't have to think that it was my fault. For the longest time, everything was my fault. I'm a disappointment. I shouldn't exist. I'm the trash. But once I started being able to hear from another person, no, Julie, do you realize the trauma you just experienced? Do you understand how you were impacted by this? Hearing it out loud made me be able to show myself compassion and kindness. Any other human that would have gone through what I had gone through at that point in time I would have been able to show compassion to them. So it's that whole idea that we hear all the time, how would you treat a friend? We don't treat ourselves like friends ever. So it's learning how to do that. It's learning how to have a compassionate conversation with yourself in the moment and be able to state the facts of what have happened. Well, your birth mother attempted to abort you twice. No wonder you felt the way you felt because you were relinquished 4 times before you were actually 7 weeks old. So when people talk about attachment and they're describing how important attachment is, you didn't have that. So duh, no wonder you don't understand what affection is supposed to feel like, look like. All of those things, being able to just, okay, that's valid. Now what? And I think that's where we get to, this is where we tune into our intuition. What's next? And you definitely helped me to do that. You opened up space for that. And it stopped me from seeking others outside for the validation and find it within me, not in a selfish way, but for me in a spiritual way. I would be still with myself and listen. Okay, what is actually next? And not try to solve it in my brain, but just sit in stillness and ask.
Yes.
Sounds pretty simple.
So let's get super practical with intuition, because those 2-part question, who am I and what's next? What's my identity? And then intuitively, what am I supposed to do with this new version of me that I'm just kind of meeting for the first time? I love getting to the point in the journey where we get to dive into intuition with our clients, because it's like, this is what I wish somebody taught me since childhood, and cool that we get to teach our kids now and pass it on. But Julie, can you start by explaining the difference between ego and intuition? Or some people may say, how do I know the difference between my anxiety and intuition, or survival response and intuition? Can you first describe what ego or survival or trauma feels like in the body?
Yeah, it's the word that describes it as hypervigilance. So it's this forced, stressed, nonstop pressure. It's uncomfortable, but we're so used to it that for me, that's what I knew best, was pushing through, fighting, whatever I was conditioned to do growing up. That's what I needed to do. It was all outside influence. But then what ended up happening was that outside influence became internal because those voices were what I heard all the time. And so I think it's being able to identify those voices. Again, it's the whole parts work idea. The saboteur assessment has become one of my go-tos, and you've talked about it. And you talk about ego versus intuition a lot on the podcast. And so my perspective is being able to recognize those things that do not feel settled in our system, that do not feel peaceful. And sometimes this is what's really difficult about ego versus intuition. Sometimes ego feels logical and intuition illogical. This is where you have to get out of your mind and into your body to figure out which one is right for you. Because if you're going with logical, which is what our natural thing will do, a lot of times our body will say, this doesn't feel right, but there's confusion. That's the reason why that's so difficult. When you choose to go, well, let me try this illogical. Let me see how this feels in my body. And you begin to feel like this wonder and this awe and this, like, it's this weird feeling that you've never felt before. This is what happened for me. And I remember feeling, what is this new teaching? This is so interesting to me. But leaning into that lit up, joy-filled, peace-filled, this is my direction. There's something really amazing about that. When it was logical and my body didn't follow, I didn't have words. I wasn't able to communicate. So there was a frozen feeling here. That's another way that I knew something's not right. But I wouldn't have been able to know that until I understood all of the stuff behind me. Then once I would lean towards this, I'm telling you this, you watch this happen with me. I would just overflow with stuff. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's happening. And you'd be full body chills. This is crazy. That's how I knew. And I even now talking about it, I have chills talking about it. There's something really amazing about just sitting with yourself and listening to what you want. And it's not selfish. We were all put on this earth for a purpose, and finding that purpose, it's pretty amazing. And so being able to figure that out on your own and follow those little, as you've called, sacred breadcrumbs, are how we are really able to lean into that piece, that intuition piece.
Yeah. And if you guys, many are going to be listening to this episode, but if you're watching the video portion, I'm going to share something that Julie created, which was a combination of everything she learned from somatic work, Brene Brown. Did you say Marianne Williamson? Kind of a combination.
Yeah, I didn't, but yes, this is a combination of that too. Yeah. And Young Pueblo too from Lighter.
Shout out to Young. We love Young. But it's a very practical, basic chart, ego versus intuition, what ego sounds like and feels like in the body compared to intuition. And this has changed my life. I still pull this little chart out that Julie created if I'm stuck in a place of which route should I take? Which direction should I go? Is this my ego or anxiety? And so it's basically ego. It's very loud. It's demanding. It's scrambling for safety. It feels constricting and suffocating. It feels like restless energy, which Julie already spoke to. It feels like fear. It's our survival energy. Intuition, on the other hand, it is a quiet whisper. And so if anyone wants to learn how to deepen their relationship with their intuition or their trust in their intuition, it's imperative what Julie said earlier is the only way to get there is to be quiet, to be still, to take a seat with yourself. And many of us are in this chronic fight or flight response where there's not even enough safety in our own nervous system to take that pause. That pause feels really threatening. So somatic work, nervous system work, that was the key for us to learn how to be still in the first place, because I was running and doing and hyperachieving for over a decade, running away from my trauma. So that quiet whisper, that's our intuition. It's this knowing that it's safe, even if the truth is undesirable. My coach used to call it the please God, don't let it be truth. It's even if the intuition is revealing something that we don't want. There's a deep, settled knowing that this is safe, though, that this is the path I should walk in. Intuition's expansive and freeing. It settles in your body. It feels like love. It is thriving energy. So if you are listening to this and want the slide deck, just DM me and I'll send this to you. It's what Julie created. It's amazing. I think you have a more updated one, or we can put it in the show.
I do. Yeah, I do. It also has journal prompts too. But yeah, there's something, I think the bottom one where it said the first knee-jerk reaction and then tapping into the intuition one is tapping into your higher self. That came directly from Jung because, well, and that's not even his actual name, but that's his pen name. But it did because I think for the longest time, I felt like my knee-jerk reaction was who I was. And I didn't like my knee-jerk reaction. So that was one of the biggest things for me, was to be able to identify that isn't actually who I am. It's when I actually take the time to be still and listen to how do I want to react to this? And so that's when I notice in a relationship, doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, with my kids, with friends, whatever, even when we had our rupture, it was, oh, this isn't okay. I don't feel okay. I don't feel good. I need to figure out how I'm going to communicate this. And what was so funny is we were in silence at the retreat. So it wasn't like we could actually talk in this. So we were in. And so when you first brought it up, my knee-jerk reaction was, I'm pissed. That's what I said. And that isn't who I am. You uncovered what was underneath it. It was, there's a part of me that's not feeling accepted just as I am here. And that is a really big deal for a lot of people. And so it's being able to get to that, what is that deep core need? Which is tuning into your intuition helps you to do that.
Yeah. So good. So it's been amazing because you've gone from that woman 2.5 years ago where if somebody were to ask you who you are and what's your calling in life, you would have burst into tears, to a woman who now knows herself like she knows it, like she knows it, like she knows it, and calls other women to do the same, as well as somebody who's so intuitively led, now in a completely different type of purpose work. And if you want to share a little bit about your program before we wrap up this this episode and just how it's been going, the miracle moments. And oh my gosh, if I had seen this at the end of this road, I never would have believed it type moments.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting to, for me, pull together all of this head knowledge that I've had. I mean, my goodness, I have my stinking master's in counseling. And that's the reason why I felt like such an imposter when we first had our conversation. I'd been helping people, which I did help people. Don't get me wrong. You were one of them that I helped, but there was a missing piece in there. And so I think for me, it's really been noticing the stillness piece and being able to find what is next for me. And what came up that was next for me happened a year and a half ago after I was listening to a Kelly Brock podcast. What I heard was you need to stop working with addictive behaviors and start working with adoptees. And it was like a lightning bolt. And I remember thinking, I wasn't even home. I was somewhere else. Entirely, what is happening? And I called you and you were chills all over. And I feel a validation here. I was still learning how to tune into my own intuition, right? And so that's when I began exploring that. What is that going to look like? How do I take all this stuff that I've learned and put it into a package to help adoptees get to a place of self-belonging that I really feel like I have reached? I truly, truly believe that. I don't feel like I'm healed past tense. I'm always going to be uncovering things, but that's what I had been working on and have been working on. And I've got a few different things that are marinating and happening right now, but the biggest one is I'm starting my 7-month program called Revolution, Uncovering Your Birthright. And it's pulling together all of the modalities that have helped me. So IFS, which is parts work, even the cognitive behavioral piece, because a lot of times our thoughts are so foundational and they contribute to our beliefs, which contribute to our behaviors. So it's focusing on that initially because so many adoptees, that's where they are. They live in their head. I did for years in order to uncover our birthright, what our identity truly is. It's a pretty intensive program, but I'm really proud of it. And I have a lot of passion for this population. And there are so many things that people don't know. Like a person who is not an adoptee wouldn't understand that we have a fake birth certificate, basically, an amended birth certificate that all of us are given. We don't even know any of our birth information. We don't have birth stories. We've never been told the story. I mean, my goodness, I can tell both my boys' story of birth. It's fascinating to me. I don't know that about myself. So there's things that I'm trying to bring awareness to that the normal populace doesn't understand. And in a lot of ways, only adoptees do understand. And so that's the reason why I want to create this community where they can find home, where they can feel like they're at home and learn how to belong to themselves in a very gentle way as we do what you've done in your program. So very similar, but a little bit more focused on adoptees.
So powerful, Julie. And the whole point, right? You've been able to create enough safety in your own body, your own nervous system. You have literally come home to yourself. And now you've been able to step into your purpose that's going to serve the collective. And if somebody had told you what you were doing now 2.5 years ago, that might have been like, oh, that's kind of scary, or hell no, or whatever. But here you are, still holding the unknown of the future, but now with this settled peace, this anchored alignment you're living in. And it's just so powerful, so beautiful. So thank you for being my real life inspiration. Now I love getting to send clients your way and already have people who are adopting, who've gone through your program, who've said it's phenomenal. And so guys, if adoption is part of your story or something you're thinking of, Julie bringing this through the lens of somatic work and incorporating other things like parts work and what she's learned along the way, game changer. Game changer. So yeah. Julie, I love you so much. Thank you for being on, as always, coming back for this conversation. And if this was resonating with you, we really cannot get this out to everyone, just us two. And so it would mean the world if you know somebody that needs to hear this message, just to share that, tag us on socials. We would love to hear personally what resonated with you. And we hope you have the most powerful descent into the end of this year and then coming into 2025 as a conscious, empowered woman who knows herself, who knows exactly what's next, and we love you to pieces.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Honored, and can't wait to see what this next year brings.
Same, friend. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.
Thank you so much for listening today. It's been great to be with you. If you found that what you heard today really resonated with you, if you listened and felt like the Revolution program was something that you were leaning into, or even the Root to Rise program was something that you were leaning into, go ahead and DM me and I will send you any information that you need for either of those programs. Or if you're really wanting to learn more and schedule a call to ask questions, feel free to DM me about that too, and I will be happy to send you a link to be able to schedule. So happy to spend time with you again this week. Thank you for taking time to listen, and I look forward to speaking more with you in the DMs. Have a great week and a great Thursday. See you next week.